Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Off the Cuff. This is Nick Campanelli, your host, and Off the Cuff is hosted by Taylor Timepieces here in New York. Today, we're going to be talking about a topic that's very near and dear to my heart, and that's going to be building up your network and how I did it, how somebody else can do it that's interested in pursuing the art of buying and selling watches, and just you know um, being a solid human being. And I think the long and short of it is, your mom was right. You got to treat people the way that you like to be treated. But I think that's there are definitely certain tactics and things that people use to become the best networker and negotiator there is. So, hopefully I'll share some of that with you today, as well as rather my own experience with how I built my network. Um, so yeah, a little bit about how Taylor Timepieces started out. We spoke about that in the previous episode, but the reason why we are called Taylor Timepieces is because I have a pretty strong background in the fashion space. And one of the things I did when I moved to New York from out of state was connect with a lot of models and influencers on social media and just try to provide them as much value as I could. Um, so I had connected with a gentleman who is now a great friend of mine. His name is Chris. And Chris runs, at the time, he was really just starting out, but now he runs a very successful fashion brand. And I connected with him and I said, "Hey man, you have a pretty large social media following. He's a pretty good looking guy." I said, "Hey, I would love to give you some of my pieces to wear, and basically just wear them, and tag me in the photos." I felt that there was a lot of synergy between fashion and watches, as being accessories of the fashion space. So basically just wear my pieces for free and give me shout outs and things of that sort. And he was very amicable to doing that. And we had done that for a couple months, and basically without a hitch, I would basically come to New York from out of state. I was living in the tri-state area at the time, and I would tell him, "Hey, here are the watches that you get to choose from," and he would pair them with outfits for his social media posts. The great thing about that is I got the exposure, and then he got to wear some beautiful pieces, of his choosing. And I just told him, I said, "Hey, listen, man, now that you have hooked, and kind of built that familiarity as wearing a lot of my pieces, if any of the gentlemen that come in," because he was running a clothing company at the time, a menswear company, he's since expanded to women's wear. If any of those people come in, feel free to present them with the watches that I've given you. Um, and if one of them sells, I'll make sure to give you a little cut or a little piece of commission for the transaction. I felt this was pretty important because I think that in the world these days, especially in my generation, there's not a lot of reciprocity. I think that a lot of people expect things, and I wanted to make sure that he understood that he would get compensated for helping me out, and that this was not just a, "Hey, do me a favor, man, if anyone comes in, you sell my watch, I'll be really grateful." So you got to build in that incentive, or else people, they just won't be as inclined to help you. I think that goodwill only goes so far, especially in this business. And you want to be able to, basically offer that incentive. So I started going in, to not only his shop, but other tailor shops around the city, other clothing shops, other, even a couple cigar shops, a couple, barber shops. And I would just say, hey, all these, to all these high end places, basically the same thing. Here's my card. You see me, I'm a customer of yours. If a customer comes in and he's wearing a nice watch, or perhaps, he's looking for a watch, present him to me, give him the card. And basically, if I make a sale through that platform, through that gentleman or that lady, to be mutually exclusive, I will give you a little something. So, to date, it's worked rather well. And I just think that it's very important to be able to provide that service. I think it's all about providing value. Actually, there is a pretty good rule or stat. I believe it's in one of Seth Godin's books. I'm not sure if some of you are familiar with Seth Godin, The Purple Cow, and Why We Buy, and things of that sort. But in one of his books, he just states that, as a client, as a potential customer, you need to be able to see something 6 times before it becomes common nature to you, before it becomes something you associate the product with the brand and things of that sort. So something like Coca-Cola, his whole theory was basically someone has to see Coke or have Coke mentioned 6 times before, when I mention soda, you think right away Coke. So, having a marketing degree, I was pretty familiar with these things, but, to just kind of put them in practice, and I felt that basically presenting these pieces to these higher end gentlemen and giving them value was the way to go. To touch a little bit about my experience with this social media and Instagram influencers, I very rarely, if ever, have had a negative experience with them. I know a lot of people are intimidated by social media and things of that sort. And working with such big influencers. And I think there's a couple keys there. I think the first of which is, one, you never want to overshoot and, basically reach out to somebody who has a much larger following than you. So if I have 300 followers, somebody who perhaps has 1 million followers isn't really going to give me the time of day, because to them they don't see the benefit to their brand to basically interact with somebody that doesn't have a lot of social media following. And the way you get around that is to find somebody who is a little bit stronger than you. So at the time, from personal experience, Chris was just starting out. He come from real estate. I had come from real estate, and he didn't have a super large following, and he was also local. So I think at the time he might have had 10 or 20,000 followers. I had a little bit over 1,000. So I would say, basically about 10 times what I had. And I said, hey, listen, I think that these things will really benefit both our brands. Another thing that people don't realize, or perhaps don't pay attention to, something that I have really taken note of, even as people reach out to me, is as a businessman, you never want to compete with the person that you are basically offering a partnership or a collaboration with. So it worked out with myself and a couple other people that I have worked with, because if I go to a company that I'm familiar with, a beard care company or a clothing company or a fragrance company, and I say, hey, we should collaborate, we should basically build that camaraderie and build that brand recognition together. It worked out a lot better because I was the watch guy to the beard care people. I was the watch guy to the clothing people. as I expand and as I grow a bigger Instagram following, shameless plug at tailored_timepieces, you have a lot of people that would reach out to me and say, hey, I'm made my own watch company. I made my own watch brand. Um, whether it's a big thing is those wooden watches, and a lot of them come from overseas in Asia, and they say, hey, can I send you basically these watches to review? And now my thought process there is, I'm a watch guy. So as a watch guy, why would I want to compete with myself by giving, basically trying to sell watches from another company? So that's something that Tailored Timepieces has always been very cognizant of, is who we align with, and basically who does our brand align with. And conversely, you have a lot of people that will reach out and they don't really offer any value on top of, hey, do this for me and do that for me. I think that going back to the law of marketing that I mentioned earlier with Seth Godin, I think that it's very important to wait a little bit before you ask for what the big ask is going to be. Now, that doesn't mean that you're doing it in a disingenuous way and you're doing it to get something out of the person that you're working with. But, I'm much more inclined personally. I don't know about you. I think we as humans are much more inclined to work with somebody or do something for somebody that, we built that rapport with. So, going to someone like Chris, going to someone like some of the beard care companies that I've worked with, I've provided them free value on numerous occasions by basically, as a gentleman with a, larger beard at the time. Now it's a little shorter, but it was larger. I would buy their products and promote their products as something I used. And you see a lot of guys now that I will tell them, reach out to somebody on social media, see how you guys can collaborate and see what synergies are there. And they'll reach out to somebody like Eminem and say, hey, I'm a rapper, you're a rapper, we should collaborate. Or, hey, they reach out to somebody like H&M and they say, hey, I designed these shoes, you should put them in your H&M stores. Why? What have you done for me recently? And as much as we would like to believe and convince ourselves that it's basically not a I scratch your back, you scratch mine kind of society, that's very much not the case. I think that people need to see that reciprocity before you go out and you ask basically what the big ask is. And I think that's important. I think a lot of people get that wrong in the long run. And, I think in the watch industry, I definitely don't speak for a lot of I can't speak for a lot of watch dealers and watchmakers, but I think especially in the watch industry, you have a lot of people that'll reach out to me on a daily basis and say, hey, Nick, I love this watch. I really want it at this price. And maybe you list something up for, $10,000 and they want it for $8,000. And they go, hey, I know it's under your price, but I've always wanted this watch. Now, you tell me, who would you be more inclined to work a more favorable price with? Somebody who has, bought from you on several occasions and has presented you with a lot of value and, maybe recommended a couple customers to you, or somebody who just reaches out to you on social media or Facebook Marketplace and goes, hey, I'm on the wait list for the Submariner, so give it to me for $1,000 above retail. That shows me a couple things. The first of which, it shows me that they have a general misunderstanding about how we conduct business because, as I mentioned in previous business and previous podcasts, is basically we don't get things at retail. If we did, I would, be living a much more lavish life than I think a lot of people, know that I'm living. I think that this job would be a lot easier and I wouldn't be, basically talking about it so openly. And two, that tells me that that person is selfish because, hey, I want this watch at retail plus a couple $100, and I think I should get it because I deserve it. And listen, I'm sure that person's a nice person, but at the end of the day, everyone's got to do business. Everyone's got to make money. Certain things that I think a lot of people misunderstand, and basically how in the effort of how to build a network is to stick to your word. I mean, a big thing that we have in the watch industry is the phrase mazel, which basically means, deal, done deal. And, I'll speak to a lot of my friends who basically say, hey, Nick, what's the big deal? And, if I change my mind and, I don't want maybe a t-shirt that I bought at a store, or, I don't want a watch, or I don't want a food item that has been unopened. Why can't I return it? Or rather, I can return it at any point. Why is watches any different? And I think, if I can shed some light on that, I would say watches are different because, the watch industry is such an interesting industry in the fact that a lot of this business is just strictly based on your word and your reputation. I mean, you've seen really successful businesses and, watch channels, and I won't name any names, that have really plummeted because they were unable to keep their word. They seemed dishonest. And, in the watch industry, for the most part, there's no contracts. Nothing you have to sign. If you want something, you just say, hey, I want this item, and that item is sold to you. And what I tell people is, listen, if I am giving you the respect of not making you go through the signage of paperwork and basically, honoring the price, then, I need you to honor the fact that the deal that we've made is the deal that we've made. Of course, there are plenty of times where people will try and back out of the deal. I like to say everybody gets one, explanation similar to this one, in which I say, hey, listen, the watch industry is held to a higher standard than a lot of other industries, and that's why I think I have a fascination with it. But, don't do this again. And if we do this again, it's no hard feelings. It's just, I cannot work with you. I think that the watch industry and tailored timepieces as a whole holds themselves up to be a very honest and honorable business. That's why I'm doing these little podcast explanations with you guys here now, is because I want to show you and tell you about how I do my business, and basically how someone who is just starting out does their business, which in my mind is so much more difficult because I'm learning the way that you're learning, with you. And I think that needs to be honored. I think that there's a certain level of authenticity and a certain level of vulnerability that comes with doing something like this. And I'm very glad to do it, but it does come with certain expectations from the buyers. And I guess going on from that point, when you purchase something, I think the bigger difference is when you purchase something like a shirt or food and it remains unopened, or the shirt is not tried on, and you wear it and then you return it, after a day. Maybe it doesn't fit you. Maybe you gained a couple pounds after the wedding, or, coming from the fashion industry, a big thing that we would do is we would buy these suits, and we would buy these expensive clothes. We would wear them for the shoot, and then we would return them at the end of the shoot. So I think the big difference is when you have something that is brand new. In terms of a watch, if you put it on your wrist, that item is no longer brand new, so it goes down in value. Now you could say, oh, hey, I didn't wear it, there's not a lot of wear on it, but Couple things. The first of which is I think a lot of people exaggerate, basically not wearing it. They'll wear it around the house, very similar to how I'm wearing this Datejust 36, and they'll say, hey, I never wore it because it doesn't have any wear shown. But at the end of the day, I don't feel comfortable. And I think a lot of other dealers don't feel comfortable with presenting that watch as a brand new watch if it's been on a wrist for 3 days, 5 days, 10 days, any days at all. I think the beauty of this you know industry and of this hobby for some people is the liquidity of watches, and the fact that I could give a call to any dealer at any time and say, hey, I have to sell this item, and they give you a cash offer and you get that liquidity. You can't do that with a house. You can't do that even with a stock. I mean, stocks are relatively liquid, but you'd have to call somebody to liquidate your stocks. You'd have to, basically fill out some forms and things of that sort. You don't really have to do that with watches. And while that's a beautiful benefit, is, basically you can get money within anywhere from, within a 24-hour period rather easily. The negative to that is the market is so fast paced. I mean, I can buy a watch on Monday for $15,000, and 3 days later, a week later, it could be worth $14,500. So it's like a stock in that manner, just much more liquid. So a lot of these times, people get upset when they say, hey, I bought this watch a week ago and I don't want to lose money on it, but I don't like it anymore. And I tell them, hey, listen, I'll try to be as fair as possible. But if you bought this watch even, let's say a month ago for $3,000, and, online now it's going for $2,700, I now need to buy that thing for 25 or 26 to make any money. So yes, I understand, it's an unfortunate part of this business. But there are a couple of things that we try to do to mitigate that loss. That I think a lot of other brands don't do, a lot of other companies don't do, and one I think that should be done more in the industry, and that's trades, and that's also basically consignment. And I mean, usually what I'll do, and, when I speak to my partner, Eric, or when I speak to Grayson, we will try to trade you out of the piece if that piece is decreased in value significantly since the time of purchase. And I can tell you that if you have that relationship with your dealer, I'm much more inclined to give you the best price possible if we have done a lot of business, if you are polite, if you are kind, if you aren't very full of yourself and very demanding. And I think in that sense, a lot of people need to be cognizant of that. Everyone, it's something, is somebody that I know, a very well-known dealer in my in my network, had said was, everybody is so clingy to their pieces when the market does good and they don't have $50 to spare on the purchase. So if I'm making a purchase, and basically I'm making a purchase of a Hawk Submariner for whatever it is, let's say it's $22,000 for your Hawk, and I offer you 21.5, and you start kicking and dragging your feet. That's totally cool. But then what happens if the market shifts? Now, you want it to be as mutually beneficial as possible, in the sense that, if the market shifts, you don't want another dealer who says, hey, this guy, John, Bobby, Eddie, Marie treated me like shit. And so, they weren't really willing to work with me on price. They really were a stickler when it came to making me offers that were lowballs. Now I have no ill will doing the same with them when the market is down and perhaps they're in need of money. I think, like any business, creating that mutually beneficial relationship is really key to becoming a successful businessman. I think a lot of people will ask me, Nick, how do you get what you need for a watch? Sometimes you'll buy watches a little bit higher than expected. How do I, basically sell to that end user? And I think a lot of it is relationship based. A lot of people within reason want to buy from their friends, and if you create that friendship with your client, whether it's in watches, whether it's in insurance, real estate, no matter where it is, they're going to be a lot more inclined to work with you. So I think that's, an important factor. Another thing too is, there is a caveat to that, and that's, of course, they'd be a lot more inclined to work with you within reason. So if I have a watch that the market says it's worth 18,000, I can ask 20 without a problem, knowing that, I'll probably get an offer about 18,500, 19. However, if you have a watch that the market says is worth 18,000 and you're asking 24, and you say, hey, listen, I take some great photos and I have some great friendships with my clients. I don't know about you. I love my friends. I hold my friends to a, very high standard, but I'm not spending $4, $5, $6, $7,000 more for my friend's product that is identical, to somebody else's product. I think that, one thing a lot of millennials and people my age say is, hey, listen, if my friend is a tax accountant, that's who I'm getting to do my accounting. If my friend owns a laundromat, that's who I'm taking my clothes to be dry cleaned. And while I think that there is some beautiful truth there, if your friend is charging $10 a shirt for dry cleaning and you can get it done at the place across the street for $2 a shirt, hey, listen, friend, I will see you at, our next big shindig. I try to be as, friendly as possible, but at the end of the day, we have to be a little bit price conscious. So I think that, coming from a sales background, I think that the mindset of, building that relationship, and relationships will get you to close those price gaps. I think that there is some truth in that, but I think in the long term, no one's, spending 5 or 10 times more because they like you and because you guys are, close Facebook friends and you remember to write on their wall on their birthday. So, that's important. And I just think, getting out there and learning about other people and learning about the product and learning about how you can best serve that client is very important. I think the reason why I got involved in the watch industry in the way that I did is because I felt there was a large gap between, basically the client and the watch dealer and watchmaker, that the interactions were very impersonal. Basically, before I got involved in the business, you would just walk into a shop on 47th Street and say, hey, maybe I want a vintage Datejust and I want it to be under $5,000. And, the gentleman would basically point you to a shelf or a cabinet where you would pick something and you would purchase the item. And then that was going to be it until you wanted to buy something else from him down the road, maybe 2 months down the road, 3 months down the road. And, I always kind of felt icky about that. I feel at the end of the day, it is a sales business and we want to make sales, but we want to be not only price conscious, but also conscious of the client, So, maybe you ask Mr. Client, hey, why do you want to buy this item? Why are you looking for this vintage Rolex? You said your budget is $5,000. Is that, basically, a hard budget? Is that a soft budget? Because, I always find, especially in sales, if somebody tells me that their budget is a certain number, they're always willing to spend, about 5 or 10% more for the right item, at least in my experience. And I think that, having those chats, hey, we also take trades. What do you have, potentially that you would like to trade? Maybe there's something you have that can lower that cash cash on cash, burden to you, so that you have to spend less out of pocket to get the item that you like. And I think it goes a long way. I think that, when I started Taylor Timepieces, it was in an effort to create that personal experience and reach out. And everybody that knows me knows that, I make a special effort to text the clients and reach out to the clients. And, I had a client, unfortunately, that got sick with cancer a couple weeks ago, and, reached out to him, and I plan on sending him a little something. I had a client who had a heart attack. I have a client who has, children, their anniversary is coming up. But, I think that, just remembering important things about your client and how you can best serve them, is important. I mean, and to his credit, I'll give a big shout out to, Eric on that. Eric is very good with organizing us and organizing our team, and basically writing in these spreadsheets, when these clients' birthdays are, when was the last time they purchased from us, what their interests are, what they like, and to basically go off of that, information to make the sale. And you basically make the sale in the most educated way, knowing where that client is coming from, knowing what their temperament is, what they're expecting. Because I think if you go in there very cold, I think that you're going to get a cold response. I think that if your mindset is, let me try to make this sale as much as possible and forget about my client's needs and desires, I think that you're going to be met with a lot of opposition and a lot of friction with your clients, and they're going to be left with a big, distaste in their mouth when it comes to doing business with you. And of course, I look back and, I say how fortunate I am to, basically connect with these people on such a personal level, but also be given the opportunity to connect with these people. I think that, now my friends, and I could say my friends because I built up that friendship, for them to be given me that chance to connect with them when they had larger followings and larger influences was huge. I mean, they definitely catapulted my business, and they definitely helped me in a wonderful way. So, again, shout out to all those people that, did help us out to get there. You know who you are, Chris and Greg and Jeff and all of them. A bunch of my friends over in the social media space. And, I think that basically that's how you do it. It's just to build a brand that people want to associate with, a brand that is not, not basically driven only on price and basically how do I make this sale. I think that a lot of people have forgotten that and forgotten the art of connecting with people. And again, this is called off the cuff because, I try to be as informal as possible and just kind of shoot some thoughts out there. But I'm hoping that you guys do take this advice from somebody who, is still learning the same as anybody else is, but, takes this advice and use it to grow your businesses, grow your personal relationships in any way that you can. I think that, you'll find it very rewarding in the long run, as I have, just working with Taylor Timepieces and basically building a team around those values of, honesty, integrity, and being men and women of our word. I think that at the end of the day is all that matters, because at the end of the day, that's all you have. But yeah, I mean, I hopefully you guys got some value from that. And yeah, I mean, I really hope to do a lot of these in the future. I'm hoping to do, one a week in this longer form, but I'm hoping to come out with a lot of content in the future. And if you have any questions, or if there's any other topics you'd like me to cover about how I built my business, about how I can help you guys build your business, or certain tactics about how to, just grow as a person, as a businessman. Please write it below in the comments. This has been a lot of fun for me, just kind of shooting the shit with you guys. Next week is going to be a really fun one in honor of the Halloween holiday. So, I hope that you guys, got a lot of value from this, and I hope to see you soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.